when you make it to a certain level, it's tend to be people that play with you, whether it's a male or a female. Right now, he just got a female playing with him. The female that's playing with him like that, she already was playing with multiple.
And they say 21-year-old Dequaiseon Evans was a father and up-and-coming rapper. They are heartbroken by his loss, and they say this isn't the first time they've dealt with tragedy.
A 21-year-old father of 3 walked into a recording studio to work with the man who was teaching him the business. 3 hours later, they were both dead. Not on a street corner, not at midnight, in a studio in broad daylight, doing the one thing that was supposed to be safe. Before we go further, if you find this kind of investigative storytelling valuable, take a second to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Real True Crime Analysis with notifications turned on. It genuinely helps this channel keep doing this work, and I don't want you to miss the next case. Now, let's get into what we know. Quentene Williams was 33 years old. In Milwaukee's hip-hop scene, though, almost nobody called him that. He was known as Funny Money. And if you spent any time following the city's rap community over the last several years, that name would have come up constantly. He wasn't a viral flash in the pan. He was something rarer in the current music landscape, a genuinely consistent independent artist who kept releasing project after project, year after year, without ever seeming to slow down. In an industry where so many artists chase one big moment and disappear, he built something steadier, something that looked more like a career than a lucky break. His catalog tells that story on its own. In 2022, he dropped Don't Talk Too Much, which included the single Rocky Balboa. In 2024, he released I Got the Hookup Volume, then came a remarkable stretch through 2025 and into 2026, with projects like Streets Calling, Don't Talk Too Much Volume 4, Uncomparable, Sorry I Was Trapping, and eventually Paid, but Not Full, Volume 1 earlier this year. Just 3 days before his death on August 14th, he released a video for his newest single, Goldie/I Ain't Lying. That's not the output of someone coasting. That's the output of someone working constantly, treating music like a job he took seriously, right up until the very end. People who covered the Milwaukee scene described him as connective tissue, an artist who showed up on tracks with nearly every key figure coming out of the city. From SME Tax-Free to Chicken P to Super-Throwed Fei Fei. When the local scene hit rough patches, often tied to legal trouble among other artists, Funny Money was the one still putting out music, still holding things down. In a city where hip-hop is still fighting for the same national recognition that places like Chicago and Detroit have had for decades, artists like him were part of the reason Milwaukee's scene kept moving forward instead of stalling out. In an interview on the Kid L podcast in December of 2025, he talked about where that drive came from. He explained that he'd spent time incarcerated, and during that time he watched other rappers rising, including Larry Bird and Guapo Chapo. He said he loved rap but had been too focused on what he called the street life. Something shifted for him. He realized he could do this for real, that he didn't need to fit the image people expected from where he was from, and that if he stayed authentic, people would connect with it. So he gave it a shot. That decision paid off. He built a real following, a real body of work, and a real place in his city's music culture. He wasn't just an artist anymore. He'd become a mentor, someone younger artists could look to and learn from. Not just as a rapper, but as proof that a different path was possible. That's where 21-year-old Dequaiseon Evans comes in. Evans performed under the name Lil Sheisty. He was younger, earlier in his career, and by all accounts, he looked up to Williams. Family described him as an up-and-coming rapper and a devoted father of 3. On August 17th, Evans was at the studio with his mentor. That single fact is one of the most important details in this entire case, because it means whatever happened that afternoon didn't just take the life of an established artist. It also cut short the career of someone just getting started, someone Williams was actively helping build. Does that detail sit with you the way it sits with me? A mentor and his mentee, in a room together, working on music. And within that same afternoon, both of them were gone. Let's walk through what actually happened, based only on what's been confirmed. Just before 4 in the afternoon, at 3:40 p.m. on Monday, August 17th, police were called to a commercial building near 31st Street and Cameron Avenue on Milwaukee's north side. This wasn't a nightclub, an alley, or a car. It was a recording studio tucked inside a business building, the kind of place where artists go specifically to work, often during regular daytime hours. That detail matters. This wasn't a late-night incident in an area known for violence after dark. This happened in the middle of the afternoon, on a weekday, in a space meant for creating music. When officers arrived, they found 2 men already dead from gunshot wounds. The Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office later identified them as Quentene Williams, 33, and Dequaiseon Evans, 21. Both had been pronounced dead at the scene. There was no ambiguity about what had happened to them physically. The uncertainty, and its significant uncertainty, surrounds everything that led up to that moment. Police say a 28-year-old suspect was arrested in connection with the shooting. As of the most recent reporting, that person's name has not been publicly released, and formal charges had not yet been filed. Authorities have said criminal charges will be referred to the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office for review. That's a normal part of the process in Wisconsin, but it also means that as of this recording, we don't have official charges, we don't have a stated motive, and we don't have a court filing that lays out the state's theory of what happened inside that studio. That's an unusual amount of silence for a case this high profile. 2 people are dead. A suspect is in custody, and yet the public record is remarkably thin. Is that just standard procedure for an active investigation? Or does it suggest investigators are still working to understand the full picture themselves? Right now, we can't say for certain. What we can say is that the Milwaukee Police Department has confirmed the basic facts, that a 28-year-old suspect is in custody, and that the circumstances leading up to the shooting remain under investigation. No verified information has been released about what was said in that studio, what led to the confrontation, or whether Williams and Evans knew the suspect beforehand. Any theory you've seen online claiming otherwise, at least as of this recording, is not confirmed by police or the medical examiner's office. It's worth remembering that in the earliest days of a case like this, misinformation tends to spread faster than the truth, simply because there's a vacuum where facts should be and people rush to fill it. What we do know is the human side of this story, and it came out almost immediately. Family members arrived at the scene and identified the victims before official statements were even finalized. Williams' sister, who goes by Quita, spoke to local reporters. She said her brother loved music, loved his family, loved everybody. She said she wasn't taking it well, that she was trying to hold her composure. Those aren't the words of someone processing a stranger's death. Those are the words of someone whose brother, a man with an entire discography, an entire community built around him, was suddenly gone. Evans's family spoke too. His twin sister, Dequaiseon, described him as dedicated to family, someone who had 3 children he loved deeply. She said she'd been wearing his jacket since his death, just to feel close to him, and that she'd been listening to his music, hearing his voice again through his songs. There's something quietly devastating about that. The idea that the only place left to hear someone's voice is in the songs they left behind. His nephew, TJ, recalled the last conversation he ever had with his uncle. He told him, "I love you, be safe." Evans replied, "I'm always safe." That was it. That was the last exchange. A cousin named Trinica Walker spoke at a vigil held for Evans the following day. She said the family needed to change their focus, change their mindset, if they wanted to live. She also said this wasn't the first time the family had grieved someone lost to gun violence. That's a detail worth sitting with. This wasn't an isolated tragedy for the people who loved Evans. It was part of a pattern they'd lived through before, a repetition of loss that no family should have to carry more than once, let alone multiple times. So where does that leave us? We have a timeline that's clear on the outside and unclear on the inside. We know when, we know where, we know who. What we don't know is why. And in cases like this, that gap between what's confirmed and what's still a mystery is exactly where speculation tends to rush in. Given how little has been officially released, it's worth being careful here because this is the point where a lot of true crime coverage goes wrong. People fill silence with theories, and theories start getting repeated as if they're facts until nobody can tell the difference anymore. So let's separate what's actually out there from what's confirmed. One line of discussion online has focused on the location itself. A recording studio in the middle of the afternoon is not typically thought of as a high-risk setting. Some observers have pointed out that this wasn't a public street corner or a party after midnight. It was a controlled, semi-private space where people usually have to be let in or already have a connection to those inside. That's led some to speculate that whoever was involved may not have been a total stranger to Williams or Evans. But to be clear, this is speculation. Police have not confirmed any prior relationship between the victims and the suspect, and until charges are filed and a complaint is made public, we don't have documented details about who else may have been present or how the confrontation actually began. Another point of discussion involves timing. Williams released a new single just 3 days before he was killed. Some have asked whether that release, or anything connected to his recent work, could be relevant. This is worth mentioning only because people are asking it, not because there is any evidence connecting his music output to the shooting. As of now, there is nothing in the public record suggesting his creative work played any role in what happened. It's simply a coincidence of timing that stands out because of how close the two events were, and coincidences like that are exactly the kind of detail true crime audiences tend to fixate on, even when there's no established link. There's also the broader context that Trinica Walker raised herself. The idea that this tragedy fits into a larger pattern of gun violence that has repeatedly touched Milwaukee's communities, and specifically this family. That's not a specific theory about this case. It's a wider observation about a pattern many families in the city have lived through. Whether that pattern is relevant to understanding what happened on August 17th is something only the investigation, and ultimately a courtroom, can address with actual evidence. What we should avoid is treating any of these threads as confirmed fact. No motive has been officially stated. No criminal complaint has been made public as of this recording. The suspect has not been named. Investigators have said the circumstances leading up to the shooting remain under investigation, and that phrase is doing a lot of work here. It tells us police themselves haven't finished piecing together the full sequence of events. Could there be evidence investigators are still working through that hasn't reached the public yet? It's possible. Cases like this often move slowly in public, even while they move quickly behind the scenes. What do you think happened in that room? Do you think this was something planned, or something that escalated in the moment? Those are fair questions to ask. Just be mindful that right now, they remain questions, not answers. What isn't in question is the loss. Milwaukee's hip-hop scene has repeatedly been described, by fans and by people who cover the city's music, as tight-knit, still building its national recognition, still proving itself. Williams was one of the people holding that scene together, consistently releasing music even when things around him were unstable. Evans was one of the people the scene was building toward, a young artist with 3 kids, and, by every account, real promise. Losing both of them in the same afternoon, in the same room, is the kind of loss that doesn't just affect 2 families. It ripples through an entire creative community that was counting on both of them to keep contributing to something they were building together, a scene that was only beginning to get the attention it had worked years to earn. So here's where things stand right now. 2 men, a mentor and the artist he was mentoring, were shot and killed inside a Milwaukee recording studio on the afternoon of August 17th, 2026. A 28-year-old suspect is in custody. Charges are expected to be referred to the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office, but as of this recording, they have not yet been filed, and no motive has been confirmed. The investigation into the circumstances leading up to the shooting is still active. What we're left with are the facts we do have, the timeline, the identities, the location, and the words of the families who are still grieving, alongside a set of questions that only the ongoing investigation can eventually answer. That balance between what's known and what's still uncertain is exactly why this case continues to generate so much discussion. It's not just a mystery. It's a real loss involving real people, in a music community that is still trying to make sense of what happened, and a set of families now left to grieve 2 young men whose only plan that afternoon was to make music together. If you have thoughts on this case, I'd genuinely like to hear them in the comments, respectfully, and without spreading unconfirmed claims about anyone involved. As more information comes out through official channels, we'll be here to cover it accurately, updating this story as the facts actually develop rather than jumping ahead of them. If you found this analysis informative, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Real True Crime Analysis, and turn on notifications so you never miss another investigation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next case.